When Friday hit theaters in 1995, it made the world laugh. But the story you think you know only scratches the surface. Behind that iconic porch, friendships shattered. Millions were walked away from, and improvisation became both magic and a weapon. A feud over credit simmered in silence, haunting the franchise for decades. What really happened on set when the cameras stopped rolling? Why did the partnership that created comedy gold fall apart? For the first time, Ice Cube is revealing the truth fans were never meant to see. This is the untold story of Friday. Darker, more complicated, and far more human than anyone imagined.
That's how Friday kind of germinated and became like, yo, we're gonna show our version of how we have fun in South Central.
And it's an all-time classic.
Ice Cube's Friday. Before Ice Cube made anyone laugh, he made people uncomfortable. The hardcore voice of NWA behind albums like AmeriKKK's Most Wanted and Death Certificate was raw, confrontational, and an unapologetic. Music that challenged authority and exposed harsh truths about life in South Central Los Angeles. Comedy wasn't in his playbook, so when he announced plans for a lighthearted film about everyday neighborhood life, the reaction wasn't just surprise, it was disbelief. Fans thought he was abandoning his authenticity. Hollywood executives saw a risky, potentially career-ending move. At the time, films about black neighborhoods followed a strict template: violence, crime, tragedy, and survival. Movies like Boys and the Hood and Colors told necessary stories.
It's so close to one. The Temptations in a place like Compton is much more than the Temptations in Iowa for a kid.
But they only showed one side of a multifaceted reality. Ice Cube had lived it, survived it, and even starred in Boys and the Hood. Yet he knew life in the hood included laughter, friendship, and ordinary moments of joy often invisible to outsiders. For Cube, the problem was simple. Hollywood ignored the humanity of South Central. There were porches filled with friends roasting each other, families arguing over trivial matters, neighbors laughing through struggle. These moments didn't fit Hollywood's grim narrative, but they were the truth. Ice Cube wanted to tell that story. A single day in the neighborhood without shootings, drug deals gone wrong, or tragedy. Just life, unfiltered, funny, and real. Critics, friends, and colleagues worried. Some accused him of selling out. Others warned the project would destroy his credibility. But Cube was unwavering. His goal wasn't just personal success. It was to show the world a complete picture of his community, to prove that even in adversity, people could find joy. He partnered with DJ Pooh, a fellow South Central native.
All right, so DJ Pooh and Exhibit, man, two West Coast legends, man. Well,
who understood the importance of authentic storytelling. Together, they crafted a script that drew entirely from lived experiences. Every character, every joke, every interaction came from real life. The plan was deceptively simple. Focus on small moments, avoid Hollywood cliches, and let the personalities of the characters shine. There were no guns, no gang wars, no manufactured drama, just ordinary people navigating life with humor, resilience, and heart. This simplicity would prove revolutionary, reshaping comedy and opening doors for a generation of filmmakers. But the path to making Friday wasn't easy.
You wrote Friday. I was like, that's insane. That's incredible.
Yeah, me and DJ Pooh.
That's a funny fucking movie.
Yeah.
Studios doubted the commercial viability of a hood comedy without violence. Industry insiders privately worried the project would flop. Even some of Cube's closest collaborators questioned whether he understood the risks. Yet, he refused to compromise. This determination echoed the drive that had carried him from his working-class upbringing in Los Angeles to global stardom. Before fame, O'Shea Jackson, the boy behind the name Ice Cube, grew up in a household where persistence mattered more than wealth. His father worked as a groundskeeper at UCLA, and his mother as a hospital clerk. Hard work, honesty, and determination were his foundation. Ice Cube's nickname came from a joke, but the persona it created became one of the most recognizable names in entertainment. In high school, he discovered his talent for writing rhymes, sparking a passion that would define his career. He performed locally, connecting with Eazy-E and Dr. Dre to form NWA. See, a group that would become legendary for its unflinching portrayal of street life.
A lot of drama. Everybody, luckily, out of the NWA camp has mostly gone on to do, good things.
Police brutality and systemic injustice. Ice Cube's writing was fearless, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. Qualities that would define Friday. Creating the film wasn't a departure from his artistry. It was a continuation. He was telling stories that only someone with his experience could tell, proving that narratives from the hood could be both authentic and commercially successful. Yet every step of the way, obstacles threatened to derail the project, testing his resolve and forcing him to fight for a story that Hollywood wasn't ready to see. Casting Smokey. When Ice Cube left NWA after a bitter financial dispute, he decided to move forward entirely on his own terms. The split was painful, but it forced him to tell stories without compromise. Growing up in South Central Los Angeles had given him a wealth of experiences to draw from, and music had been his primary outlet for sharing them with the world. But after years of success in the studio, Cube wanted to reveal a different side of his neighborhood, one beyond what songs could convey. Making a movie was uncharted territory. He had to learn script structure, filmmaking logistics, and how to work with actors whose processes were entirely different from musicians. Yet he was willing to take the risk because the story mattered more than comfort or convention. Instead of waiting for Hollywood to believe in their vision, Cube teamed up with DJ Pooh to create a film authentically depicting everyday life in South Central. The story came directly from their lives. To Craig losing his job after being falsely accused of stealing boxes was based on Cube's cousin, while Smokey's complicated weed habits mirrored DJ Pooh's own experiences. Even Debo, the neighborhood bully, and Craig's father, the wise and humorous figure, were drawn from real people they had known. Every frame was meant to feel lived in and genuine, not a Hollywood fantasy imposed by writers who had never spent a day in the community. Money was tight, and major studios were uninterested in what they saw as a small, uncommercial hood comedy without violence. Cube and Pooh drew inspiration from Robert Townsend, who financed Hollywood Shuffle by maxing out credit cards, and Kevin Smith, who made Clerks with almost no budget.
We wanted to make Clerks just as a showcase film to be like, look, obviously we know how to make a movie.
These examples proved it could be done. A powerful story could reach audiences without Hollywood approval. Sure, their breakthrough came when New Line Cinema read the script and recognized its potential. The studio agreed to fund the project, but with a condition Ice Cube hadn't anticipated. They didn't believe DJ Pooh had enough acting experience to play a leading role. Pooh, who had written Smokey based on himself.
So Pooh, man, you've done, the list goes on. You did Friday, you also did The Wash. What was the process of doing this movie?
Was asked to step aside for a bigger name. The pain of creating a character from your own life, only to be told you weren't bankable enough to play it, would have crushed anyone. Yet Pooh made the selfless decision to prioritize the film's success over personal pride. That left Ice Cube with the challenge of casting Smokey. The studio suggested established comedians like Chris Rock or Tommy Davidson, but Cube wanted someone fresh, someone with the raw energy of the real Smokey he had known. That's when he remembered Chris Tucker, a young comic from Atlanta he'd seen on Def Comedy Jam. Tucker had a manic, unpredictable style that was both dangerous and electrifying. Cube believed Tucker had the authenticity the role demanded, despite the studio's concerns. The first audition was a disaster. Exhausted from non-stop stand-up tours, Tucker was unprepared, timing was off, and the character felt missing. For a moment, it seemed Ice Cube's gamble had failed. But director F. Gary Gray saw the spark beneath the rough performance and fought for a second chance, lobbying skeptical executives. Meanwhile, Angela Means, cast as Felicia,
All right, here we go. Angela Means, aka Felicia from Friday.
saw Tucker struggling and invited him to her home. Over dinner and hours of line-by-line coaching, she helped him find rhythm, energy, and confidence. That evening transformed Tucker. Returning for the second audition, he was unstoppable. His talent, now structured and supported, became undeniable. Tucker didn't just act as Smokey, he became Smokey. His energy, improvisation,
Get high comedy with stars Ice Cube and Chris Tucker.
Are we funny?
We partners.
and instinctive comedic timing elevated every scene, turning lines into cultural touchstones and moments into pure comedy gold. What began as a risky casting choice became cinematic destiny, proving that with guidance, opportunity, and raw talent, the ordinary could be transformed into legendary. Lightning in a bottle. The creative spark between Ice Cube and Chris Tucker wasn't confined to the scripted dialogue. It radiated behind the scenes, transforming ordinary scenes into pure cinematic magic. But those same moments of improvisation carried consequences nobody anticipated. One iconic example began with a scene barely included in the original script. Angela Means, cast as Felicia, and was supposed to approach Cube and Tucker on the porch, ask for something minor, and leave after a polite rejection. Simple, forgettable. Yet, on the day of filming, she made a bold choice without warning. She stepped directly between Ice Cube and Chris Tucker, invading their personal space in a way that perfectly captured Felicia's audacious character. Tucker's visible surprise and genuine irritation weren't acting. They were raw, authentic reactions to an unscripted moment. Ice Cube's dismissive "Bye, Felicia" punctuated it perfectly, and that single line would reverberate through pop culture for decades, spawning memes and becoming an everyday catchphrase. That brief, spontaneous moment exemplified the lightning-in-a-bottle energy that made Friday feel alive and impossible to replicate. Yet the set itself was far from carefree. With the production operated on a shoestring budget of under $3 million, with only 20 days to shoot from start to finish. Every single minute mattered. Mistakes were luxuries the production could not afford. Despite the stoner-heavy antics portrayed on screen, Ice Cube remained completely sober throughout the shoot. As first-time producer and lead actor, he carried the full weight of the project. The creative vision, the reputation, the budget, and the punishing schedule. His intense focus and unwavering discipline kept the team moving forward, even as tempers flared, tensions rose, and the clock ticked ever closer to the impossible deadline. Every scene, every reaction, every shot had to count. The film's modest scale and dedication to authenticity also gave birth to future stars. A young Megan Good, only 13 at the time, appeared briefly as one of the neighborhood kids, a small part that would foreshadow a major career in film and television. Michael Clark Duncan made an uncredited appearance as a craps player years before The Green Mile would elevate him to Hollywood stardom. These seemingly minor roles, overlooked at the time, became the starting points for careers that would ultimately shape the entertainment industry in unexpected ways. At the heart of Friday was the ensemble's genuine chemistry. Their interactions weren't staged. They felt like neighbors, friends, and family. Audiences immediately responded to that authenticity, and critics praised the natural performances. The film's surprising box office success proved that a story grounded in real-life experiences could resonate across generations and cultures. Studios began to recognize the potential for a franchise capable of delivering both financial and cultural returns. Yet beneath the surface, the first hints of trouble were quietly emerging. The unity that had carried the production through impossible odds began to fracture. Some cast and crew wanted to preserve the original vision.
Because this is going to be a very difficult role to cast. It's hard enough finding a great actor.
A raw, humorous snapshot of everyday life without Hollywood gloss or embellishment. Others envisioned sequels with bigger budgets, flashier spectacle, and broader commercial appeal. Creative differences, clashing egos, and diverging ambitions began to erode the trust that had made the first film extraordinary. The collaborative spark that had fueled the magic of Friday was under threat, slowly replaced by disagreements and emotional distance. The magic audiences celebrated. The improvisation, the chemistry, the authenticity was balanced on a knife's edge. Every unscripted joke, perfectly timed reaction, and small act of creativity had been hard-won under pressure. What looked effortless on screen was the product of discipline, relentless focus, and genuine human generosity. Behind the laughter lay a truth few would ever see. The people who created Friday were navigating punishing schedules.
But in 1995, Friday.
Yeah, we did Friday.
Which was your most famous role, you think, Friday?
Minimal resources and the corrosive effects of sudden success. And while the world saw a comedy, what was truly unfolding behind the cameras was a complex, high-stakes drama about trust, ambition, and the fragile bonds that can either make or break a legend. In the end, Friday became more than a comedy. It became a cultural touchstone precisely because of the risks, the improvisation, and the human stakes behind the scenes. Every laugh, every meme, and every quotable line carried with it the weight of 20 intense days, creative compromise, and the delicate, fleeting magic of a team that had captured lightning in a bottle, if only for a moment. Fractured Friday. When Next Friday hit theaters in 2000, fans were stunned by one glaring absence: Chris Tucker. Smokey, the wild, manic, unforgettable character who had provided much of the original film's energy, was gone, leaving audiences confused and speculating endlessly. How could the actor who defined a role so completely simply vanish from a franchise that seemed built around him? The explanations that circulated among fans were wild and contradictory. But the truth, as Ice Cube would reveal years later, was layered and far more complex than simple scheduling or ego. So Ice Cube explained that Tucker's departure was influenced by two primary factors. First, despite the enormous draw of the character, Tucker turned down a massive financial offer, reportedly between $10 and $12 million, to reprise the role he had already perfected. To anyone watching from the outside, refusing that kind of money seemed absurd, almost reckless. Second, Tucker had undergone a profound spiritual transformation. Deeply committed to his faith, he felt uncomfortable portraying a character whose defining traits were marijuana use and a constant stream of profanity, behaviors that no longer aligned with the values he was striving to live by. When Tucker eventually spoke publicly, he confirmed the religious aspect, but
Chris Wyndham, Human Nature magazine, here with Chris Tucker, Hollywood movie star, Coach Woodson's Invitational. How you doing today?
Added nuance that clarified his perspective further. and he didn't want to be responsible for glamorizing drug use or presenting it as harmless, particularly to impressionable young fans. Beyond morality, Tucker's choice reflected a broader artistic philosophy. He avoided sequels as a matter of principle. He sought fresh challenges, projects that allowed him to expand creatively, rather than remaining tied to a single character that, however iconic, risked typecasting him. John Witherspoon, beloved as Craig's father, noted that church leaders and spiritual advisors had strongly encouraged Tucker to step away from material that clashed with his renewed faith. Layered on top of these factors was the stark financial reality. Around the same time, Tucker was being courted for Rush Hour, on a blockbuster franchise offering $20 million per film, an offer far beyond what any Friday sequel could provide. Yet money and faith were only part of the story. Beneath the surface, a quieter but equally potent tension had begun to develop between Ice Cube and Tucker, a rift over credit and recognition. Ice Cube had created Friday from his own experiences, co-writing the script with DJ Pooh, producing the film, and risking both his professional reputation.
All right, so DJ Pooh and Exhibit, man, two West Coast legends, man. Welcome to Vlad TV.
Thank you, man.
Hey, so Pooh, man, you've done, the list goes on. You did Friday.
And financial stability to bring an unconventional comedy to life. Tucker, however, brought raw improvisational genius to the project, transforming scripted scenes into unforgettable comedic moments. His timing, instinct, and energy became what fans most remembered, leading to the widespread perception that Tucker had made the movie. Public adoration increasingly gravitated toward him, sometimes overshadowing Ice Cube's critical behind-the-scenes contributions. Both men were justified in their pride. Ice Cube had constructed the world, written the characters, and fought to make the project happen when almost nobody believed it could succeed. Tucker had infused that world with life, spontaneity, and humor, turning a solid script into cultural phenomenon. But when two strong, creative personalities clash over authorship and recognition, even deep respect can give way to quiet resentment. What began as a mutually beneficial collaboration slowly became a subtle rivalry. Though neither ever aired their grievances publicly, the magic that had fueled the original Friday, the friendship, the trust, the shared creative rhythm, was replaced by emotional distance and tension. And the story of Tucker's departure and the rift it created is a stark reminder that even the most brilliant collaborations, no matter how inspired, are vulnerable to the pressures of ego, acclaim, and competing visions. The story of Friday didn't end with the final scene. It continued behind the camera, in silent tensions, lost friendships, and choices no one sees on screen. Ice Cube protected his vision, but at what cost? The magic remains, but the people who made it possible were forever changed. Can creative genius survive without compromise? Or does success always leave casualties in its wake? The answers aren't simple, and the truth is still unfolding.